Hey there, this is me, Mohammed Mamik, and welcome to the third class for your grade 10 computer sciences. I hope you guys are doing well and you guys are understanding each and every lecture. Just in case if you have any queries, please feel free to ask. I'm here to facilitate. As far as this chapter is concerned, I believe that we have completed the starting topics of that consist of the program development lifecycle. We have completed PDLC that includes analysis, design, coding, testing. Then we discussed in terms of the design part that we do have flow charts, we have pseudocodes, we have a structure chart. So just after that area, we are going to continue our lecture from right here, and I'm going to discuss with you guys that basically we are going to understand the need for validation checks to be made on input data and the different types of validation check. We are going to look in today's class that what do you understand by a range check, a length check, a type check, a presence check, a format check, a check digit, and what is the purpose of each of these validation checks. So before getting into this topic, I just first want to understand from your point of view that what do you understand when I say of this word validation, right? Like what it comes into your mind if I discuss with you in terms of this word validation. So here I have some starter questions as well. So the first starter question is regarding what is an automatic computer check to make sure that entered data is sensible or not or reasonable or not. So now basically you need to understand that in this chapter we are referring to check the accuracy of entered data. For example, if you went to university and a university gave you an admission form. So into that admission form, they need to make sure that the data you are entering is accurate, that the data you are entering is consistent, the data you are entering is of correct information. For example, they have asked your age. So you need to enter your age in terms of integers and perhaps any age that is between, for example, like starting from 15 and ending at 50 to 60. Like, for example, if you are going to write the age of 100, or for example, if you are going to write the age of either 2, 3, 4, or 5, this is going to be wrong, right? So, this is what we are going to discuss in today's class regarding validation. That validation basically means that we are checking that if the entered data is accurate or not. You need to understand right here that I am referring to the entered data. Entered data basically means that, for example, if you have a form and you are entering your data into that, so validation means that the data that you are entering right now, I need to check its accuracy, I need to check its results. So, for example, if I have an automatic computer check to make sure that if my data is reasonable or not, so what it could be? One option right here is a double entry. Double entry, you have already seen that. For example, if I'm logging on to any website on any social media platform, so you have might have seen it yourself as well. You are requested to enter twice. So you are requested to enter password twice. For example, enter password and then here comes the box again, enter your password again. So what happens that most probably when both of the passwords matches that you log into that website. For example, you are signing up into that. So you have three areas: double entry, verification, validation. You should be selecting your answers that what is the correct one. You can think on to that. Then I have question number two. Question number two basically says that what validation type would make a postcode was entered into the correct format or not. Now, when it is a postcode, that means that I am referring to three areas. Those three areas are either if it is a length check, either if it is a format check, or either if it's a presence check. Right now, I do know that you might be understanding the meaning of these words or you might not be, but I hope that you don't need to confuse or get confused in all of this. I will be explaining to you right here. But just before I begin, I just want you to take a moment and think out loudly yourself that what do you understand by this term, that is validation? Like, what do you understand? What comes into your mind? Other than that, what can be the answer of these two starter questions? So, I am giving you 3 minutes for this task, and your time starts now. Okay, so the time's up, and I believe that you are done with the thought process regarding validation. So let's get along with that. Validation is basically an example of an automatic check that is used to make sure that if the data that you are entering into your computer system is sensible or not. By sensible, it means that if your data is accurate or not, if your data is consistent or not. This is what we are checking right here in terms of validation. That means that your data should be accurate when it is being entered into the computer system. So this is validation, and some areas of validation, or you can say that how can you check that if it is correct or not, if the data entered is correct or not, that is basically through some different ways, and those different ways or areas are just right in front of you. That includes a length check, a presence check, a range check, and all of these. So all these categories basically provide you a different area for checking your value, that if it is correct or not. So basically validation is like you are checking your data, that is it, validation is the checking of data that is input to make sure it is reasonable or not, to make sure that if it is those certain boundaries or not. And if you want to have those certain boundaries, you can use either of these areas so that you can set them. Validation is the checking of data to make sure that it is in the sensible or certain boundaries or not. So, for example, the first area I have is a range check, length check, type check, presence check, format check, and check digit. So one by one, I will be discussing the all of these. So, first of all, if I have the area that is a range check, so range check basically checks that if the data entered is into that exact numerical range or not. For example, if I'm asking your marks, so the total marks for your paper is basically for 0 till 50. So that means that the marks you're likely going to be rewarded is going to be from 0 till 50. For example, if someone just added that I secured 60 marks out of 50, I secured 100 marks out of 50, I secured 70 marks out of 50. This is something that is not going to make any sense. So this is what perhaps validation is going to work on. That range check is going to set the range of the area. So data should be in between those ranges. Like for example, you can see that data should be between 1950 to 204. And if this is the data, that should be into the range. Integer between minus 100 and 100 or out of bounds. So we do have the pseudocode for it as well. And the pseudocode basically explains that first of all, we need to take an output. Output means that you are basically telling your user that what you need to do. Basically, generating output means that you are requesting the suitable use of prompts. And if you are using the suitable use of prompts, prompts basically means that you are asking something. So, output, please enter the student marks. Now, the next thing you need to do is that you need to again put a loop here, and the loop that is listed here is repeat until. And just after the loop, they have requested to enter the student marks. And then if the student marks are in this range, for example, if the marks are less than 0, greater than 100, that means that you can output this statement that the marks are not in the range. Similarly, you can flip this code as well. For example, if you make it like that, if the marks are greater than 0 and if the marks are less than 100, that means that your answer is in the range, right? So this is what a range check do. You can apply this range check on any other field as well. Not importantly that you have something like this. For example, you can even add it if you have an age group or something. So I hope it's clear to you. The next area I have right here is basically a presence check. So I do use a presence check, but as the word says presence, presence means that you are checking a presence of something. Presence means that if the person is available or not. For example, I make sure that my every student of my class is fully present in the into the classroom, mentally and physically both. So that means that I'm just making sure that every student is here, every student is listening to me. So that's what a presence check do into the computer as well. It checks that if that field must have that data enter into that or not. So for that, first of all, what you need to do is that you need to generate an output. And generating an output, first of all, you need to do like please enter your password of 8 digits. That means that first of all, you have entered your user. Perhaps what you have to need to do, then you applied the loop here, that is repeat until, and then you entered the password. Then you have a check right here that says that if the length of your password is not equals to 8, that means that your user has to provide with this message. That means that your password must be of exactly 8 characters. And if that's not the case, that means that you need to re-enter that. So presence check can be used right here as well. For example, if you are filling up an online form and you have left the most important fields, like for example, you have left out the name, you have left out the age, you have left out your mobile number. So it is going to blink a red area onto that. That means that this area is not being filled. So this is when you are going to implement a presence check, that is going to make sure that if the data is entered or not. Other than that, I have other areas as well, and other areas includes the length check. So what perhaps a length check do? The length check basically checks that if the data is of certain numbers of characters or not. Right, like for example, you can see on this area that review the errors on page account number must be 8 characters long. This is an example of an length check. That means that account number is supposed to be 8 digits long, and just in case if it is not 8 digits, that means that here we you are going to encounter some sort of error. So first of all, you have to generate a message that output enter your password of 8 characters. Then here is your loop, repeat until, and the loop that is being used here is basically of if then else and if. That basically says that if the length of your password is not equals to 8, that means that you need to enter your password, or it should be exactly of 8 digits, and you need to keep on doing that until your password is of 8 digits. So basically, if it's a length check, it could be used to rectify the length of your password. If it being used, you can even check it to rectify the length of your name as well. For example, your name should be at least of minimum of 5 to 6 characters in length. So length check checks the length of that. That is basically an example of a validation area. Other than that, after length check, I have a type check. So what do a type check do? Basically, a type check basically checks that only if the certain type of data can be entered or not. For example, if I'm asking you that what are the number of siblings you have, so there is going to be a specific type of data that you are going to reply to me. Like for example, you can say that, sir, I have two brothers, I have one sister. You are never going to say that, sir, I have 2.5 brothers, I have 3.6 sisters. This is going to be wrong. You cannot enter data like this. So type check is basically a check that checks that if the data entered is of certain type or not. Like for example, you can see that here is the code output how many brothers you have, then it's this repeat until, then it says that input the number of your brothers, but if number is not equals to div number of brothers comma 1. This means that it should not be equals to that. It's basically like, for example, if I enter 2, so if 2 divided by 1, the remainder you get, or it's like completely divisible. So that means that it's not equals to that. But similarly, if you are going to add a value like such as 2.5, so that means that you are going to have an answer back. So this is the case. So if this is going to be the case, then this is going to be output. Thus, this must be a whole number. Please re-enter, and this is going to be keeps on going on until this statement is met. So if you have queries in this div function, you don't need to get worried. I'll be explaining to you right into further of my lectures. We're going to study each and every concept in detail. Other than that, right here, I also have a format check. A format check is basically the one that is basically checking the formats of that. Like, for example, if it is up to that specific format or not. Like, for example, this is a format of a date. So, different countries follow different formats. So, basically, if you want to have a specific format into that, into any area, so you can add this. That checks that if it is of that correct format or not. I do have check digit as well, and basically what a check digit do, check digit is basically the last number. It checks the series of numbers that have been entered correctly by carrying out a series of calculations on the number entered. What it means to say is that, for example, if this is the last number of the check digit, and if this is the last number of the check digit, what really happens is that this number is generated with the help of all of these numbers, with the help of all of these numbers. So there's basically an algorithm, or basically you can say a calculation that calculates that exact number. So perhaps companies or organizations can detect that if this is going to be the number, then this means that this is only correct. But just in case if they have a number other than any certain range or certain boundary, that means that then it is going to be wrong. So check digit is the one that checks that a series of number has been entered correctly or not. If it's a check digit, it basically corrects three types of errors. Those three types of errors are transposition error, check digit or extra digit, or phonetic error. These are the three types of errors that are detected by that. Other than that, let me also help you out with this book as well. So, so far we have managed to check that what is validation on input. So validation is basically when you are checking that that the data entered is reasonable or not, or within those certain boundaries or not. For example, making sure that a number is entered for an age or limited in the range of numbers or not. There are different types of validation. For example, one type of validation is a range check. And what a range check does that it checks that whether the data is in within those bounds or within those areas or not. Range check is basically a type of validation that gives you two values. First of all, you have a maximum value and you have a minimum value. It checks against those set of values that if your number is correct or not. As far as the pseudocode is concerned, we have discussed this already. The length check basically checks the number of characters that if they are properly present or not. We have so on type check. Along with validation, I have another important area as well that is going to be understood as verification. So now there is a big difference between verification and validation. Validation happens when you are entering the data. So when you are entering the data, it is checking that if the data is accurate or not. That is validation. But verification is that it checks that if the data has been accurately copied or not, if the data has been accurately transferred or not, if the data has been accurately entered into the system or not. And there are only two ways for verification, that is a double entry and that is a visual check. So perhaps if I talk about a double entry, so what really happens is that you can see it on Facebook. If you are signing up, so you are asked to enter your password two times. So when you are entering some details two times, that is an example of a double entry. So that basically checks two of the values that if they are same. So if both of the values are same, that means that that it's correct and you're good to go. Other than that, the other methods are visual check. For example, I ask you to enter my phone number right onto the computer system. So how I can verify that if it is correct or not? I'm going to check it against that on a piece of paper and I'm going to check it onto screen. I'm going to match that. So this is basically a visual checking. What is a double entry? Double entry is like using the users entering the data twice. Both entries should match them. Visual check means that manual checking if it is the data accurate or not. So, so far we are done with this area as well. That explain us regarding the validation area. That explain us regarding the verification area. So when it is basically validation, it means that if the data that I'm trying to enter into my computer system is accurate or not. And if it is verification, it makes sure it verifies that if your data is correct or not, but not on the data entering stage. If it's on a data entering stage, that means that this is your validation. But other than your data entering stage, if it's something else, then it is verification. So I hope that it's clear to you. Now I'm giving you some exercises to work on to that. So it's totally clear to you. So just in case if you have any queries, please feel free to ask me. Don't hesitate at all. I'm here to help. I'm here to support. So thank you so much. See you in the next class.